All right.
Okay. Hey.
Hey.
Murray Rothbard, right?
Yes, I represent Murray Rothbard, I guess, in this argument.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a picture there. So, hey, thanks for taking this up. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I got caught up in something that took way longer than I expected. So, I don't know if you want to do any introductions to yourself. This is your first debate, right?
Actually, it's my second.
On this platform? Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't even see the other one, but...
Yeah, it was just the tournament debate. Let's just get a couple things clear off the bat. You were the one that actually presented the question, right? So it's fair if I ask you to clarify, because I need to be intellectually honest going forward here.
So let me ask: are you a libertarian? Do you describe yourself as a libertarian?
I would describe myself as a Ron Paul libertarian, not a Gary Johnson libertarian. Yes.
Okay. Well, me too. So I think then we might be mostly on the same page. I'm a anti-Gary Jackass Johnson. That guy is completely out of the party. I have no affiliation with the Libertarian Party. Never will. I was never really a part of it, but I lean libertarian. So I don't really. One thing I struggle with is what a libertarian is, and most people describe it as someone who adheres to the NAP, right, the non-aggression principle. And so I'm assuming that if you're going to say look at a libertarian viewpoint, you're going to base it probably on the non-aggression principle, which is don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. Very simplified, right?
Right.
And so if we say libertarian viewpoint is based on the non-aggression principle, then my claim is being pro-abortion is not a libertarian viewpoint, given that it is a violation of the non-aggression principle.
Okay, so a couple of things that are suppressed premises within that statement is that one, we have to presume that we do have to make the assumption that the starting point of life, I guess, would have to be conception. Then we could, just for the sake of argument.
Yeah, so I was going to say that, non-aggression principle number one, if we assume that's libertarian. Number two, I assert that a child is a life. And there's no question scientifically that once conception, that is life. Now, the question is whether that's a child. I say it is. I would argue that it is a child. And in fact, most scientists, I think, do agree it's a child. They just don't think it's, in many cases, a worthwhile child. You could take the Peter Sanger, for instance. When does a child become viable? Well, let's just we'll say 1 week, right? 1 week after birth. That'll be the surely arbitrary point. So I think the only non-arbitrary point would be the conception. Maybe.
Okay, so we're not gonna. So we can't make this excuse. So, again, this is all just for audience clarification.
Yeah.
The for argument is not saying that a libertarian argument should say that the day after pill, the morning after pill, is immoral, because technically that may be after conception, but it's before the formation of a self-sustaining zygote within the uterus, right? So we're not going to maintain that. We're just maintaining that after the pregnancy is established, right? Terminating it in some sort of fashion is an anti-libertarian stance, right? That's your position to be.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Okay. So I kind of the morning after pill I think it actually prevents the child from or the egg from attaching to the wall. So it basically prevents the life from starting or from continuing. Or that's something that has been seriously questioned and debated within the religious community as well.
It's actually intentionally muddied, because there's two different morning after pills that people like to mix up. There's an abortion pill that's taken 1 week after sex, and then there's a morning after pill that's taken with before conception, as you described before I think the sperm cell attaches to the cell, the cell wall.
Yeah. So the other one is the 486 or something like that.
Right. It's like the forced period.
Anyway. I think that can be taken beyond up into a month or 2 months or something. I mean, quite significantly into, and that actually does acid or something basically on the baby or something like that.
It is. It's not good. So I want to maintain that I am definitely pro-life. I get my opening argument or my counter argument would be, although I have a Murray Rothbard picture, I don't actually agree with Murray Rothbard. There is a distinction. I do think that there's two things. One, I actually maintain that abortion should not be punished by criminal law. Right, so that's a big statement. And two, abortion, it could be as ethical as long as there's a host to terminate the abortion and take on the pregnancy from that point after. So it's an immoral act if a woman decides to negligently get pregnant, decide to have sex unprotected, get pregnant, form this baby or form this fetus, right, and then terminate it arbitrarily for her own selfish reasons without any due diligence to those that are around them, right? I think that's an immoral act, and I think the proper punishment to these type of acts should be society shunning that person. So that, like, there's people that come out for being racist and their lives are completely ruined, right? And I think this act would far supersede any of those. So if anyone that you knew did such a selfish act, I don't think the law would be the proper jurisdiction, because you can't trust a government entity to objectively prosecute these things in a fair fashion. What you should do is you should be able to use your freedom of association and be able to disassociate with those that are doing immoral things. How do you feel about that?
I couldn't disagree too harshly with that. So the idea of the criminal punishment, maybe I would say that, is there an arbitrary point at which we could say that there should be criminal punishment at, like, I mean, typically people will say that, I ask people, oh, you're pro-abortion, so, when should the child be allowed to be terminated? And they say, oh, well, up until the point he's able to survive on its own outside the womb. And I say, so what, like 10 years old? 12 years old? There's a famous article in the Medical Journal Ethics that actually maintains, because abortion, if you agree that late-term abortion is completely ethical, right? You should actually support abortion up to age 3, because the child is just as helpless up to age 3 as they were when they were actually within the womb. That's a fair point. I think you could take the Walter Block argument on this in terms of the punishment by law. Criminal action should be separated from the fact that there's two actions that are taking place here. First, there's the fetus, or let's be real, the baby that's being removed from the woman's uterus, right? That's the act of removal does not necessitate the act of killing. Second, if that baby is disposed of, that is the criminal act, right? So there's a very it's medically feasible if there's a host, or I guess you could say somebody that wants to carry that baby, somebody that actually wants to have a baby, and somebody that's going to kill a baby, that's somebody that has the moral judgment to actually take a sacrifice. There's going to be people actually lining up, I would maintain, right, to say, I'm going to save this baby's life. I'm not going to allow them to be killed. The criminal act should be the person that actually, or the doctor that says, oh, here's the baby, let's crack their neck and throw them in the trash. That's the criminal act. The removal itself, I don't think should be. So I definitely think that abortion doctors should be held for their criminal acts, especially if you're talking about like pre-birth, birth abortions, where you actually have the child being born and you literally kill an actual child, and I think it's quite disgusting. So yeah, I mean, and often, I think you would agree with me on this, but I was going to say that the NAP, child is a life, and it's not part of the mother, which is the typical argument that a woman should be able to do with her body what they want. And the reason I kind of point this whole viewpoint out of the pro-abortion is not a libertarian viewpoint is that I went about a year or two ago and I listened to David Bose of the Cato Institute, right? And I know, so you're probably a Tom Woods fan. Yeah, so I know he's ripped apart Cato as being a big limousine liberals, and then there's limousine libertarians, I guess. And so he came, and what is he saying? Yeah, I was saying. I think he was saying that about 75% of libertarians, people that identify as libertarians, they are pro-abortion, and most of them are pro-drugs. And I told him that I just think that nowadays it seems like libertarian is someone that wants to smoke weed. Well, I told him to have gay sex, but that's like a libertarian to me these days.
Right.
But they are in very high numbers pro-abortion. Now I went to the Mises. I don't know if can I ask you where you're located? Rico. Where? You're cutting it. I can't hear you.
Boston?
Oh, Boston. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted there, so you could
you're
talk.
Way out there. What was that?
I'm muting myself because some Ferrari's driving by. So go on.
Not your Ferrari, but no. Okay. So I'm in the Seattle area. They came to Seattle, and Walter Block and all those guys came, and it's pretty great. Pretty awesome. And I think most of the people in that crowd were probably libertarians, although I talked with a lot of people that were religious in various forms, and I myself am. So again, the idea, libertarians want to say a woman should be able to do with her body whatever she wants. And I say, okay, that's fine, but again, as I think we would agree, a child is not part of the mother. It's got different organs. It grows within the mother at a different rate. The mother is not growing at all, and the child is growing. It's got its own organs. It's got its own blood type. I've never heard of a kidney having a different blood type than its host. So, and as you had mentioned, when you have everybody, I think everybody knows when you at least above 10, it seems to get into puberty anyways, that a child comes from sex, right? So you have sex. And whether it's protected or unprotected, everybody knows there is a possibility that having as much protection as you want, there's still a possibility of it occurring.
Right.
So again, this is very risky behavior. So having a child at all, I know there was a famous case that just came out. I don't know if you watch track at all. The Olympics, Sonia Richards-Ross, she's a gold medal 400 meter, and she had an abortion a week before her Beijing Olympics. And she admitted that she struggled with it, but she had it. She had the abortion because it would have interfered with her Olympic hopes. And
that's true. Yeah, you'll never see me make I know there's a couple feminist philosophical arguments that say that it's they try to portray the child or the fetus or the embryo as a parasite on the mother's ability to control. Her autonomous self is being invaded by this outside entity, which is totally false. It was created by I guess the rare exception, right, by her own willing act of engaging in sex. And yeah, being protected or not is irrelevant to the fact that the result of that has consequences, and those consequences kind of lead to a few other issues. I don't disagree with. I did go to actually a Mises meetup myself in Boston. It was actually last. Let's see. Now it was actually last September, so that's 9 months ago. And Tom Woods. Tom Woods was a speaker, so it's funny that you brought him up. But there was an argument. I would say that the mainstream argument is in 2008 or 2007 was that basically libertarians come from a perspective where the only thing they're basically liberals that want to do drugs. This is just an irrational argument. It's a complete straw man. It's no even point debating it. But I do take the perspective here that there is health consequences for the woman that actually has an abortion. So if that person does if that person is informed on that decision, right, and they're still willing to actually destroy their own long-term physical health, their long-term mental health, and they're still willing to terminate the life of another baby, knowing disregarding the possibility of another host that could replace it, I do think that person should actually have the full consequences. They should know those full consequences and not be coddled, right? Because they were made a decision consciously, knowing that they were going to put themselves at risk. That person should be shunned, not punished, right? They should be lambasted so nobody else follows in that footstep. I am against. So be clear. There should be no public funding of abortion whatsoever. That should be should be in the realm of, seriously, Ferrari. There should be in the realm of a plastic surgery type thing where it should be elective at best. And unlike plastic surgery, right, the doctor should be punished if he actually knowingly takes a viable fetus that could be transported into another host and decides to dispose of it. That's the criminal act.
Yeah. Now, if you were, let's say a woman got to 6 months and she decided she didn't want this child, and rather than abort it, I think she should have to pay the cost of maintaining the child. What would you think of that?
So I wasn't flicking you off. Just a clarification. Can you? I do apologize. Can you just repeat that? This guy's driving right in the circles.
I was just thinking that if you have, let's say you have a woman, she gets to 6 months and she decides she doesn't want the child, right? And so she wants an abortion. So we say, no, you can't have an abortion. We would disagree with that. But would we put her into another, I mean, I don't know how that would work, but put her into a womb. But you could keep the child alive outside the womb.
Oh, yeah. Right. Absolutely.
But at high cost, right? So should we have the mother pay for that?
That's actually an interesting question. I do think that these things should be put up. That I could give you the equivocation, right? If somebody actually has a baby that they can't take care of, right, and it ends up becoming an orphan, right, should the birth parents be held responsible for the fact that that child's an orphan? I think that's a fair equivocation, and I guess I'll kind of follow. So to answer this question, I think these acts of negligence become too, how can you say, fuzzy to be able to kind of follow through. It kind of creates in terms of a government backed legal system, it takes too many resources at the time. If the child grows up and actually wants repercussions, or wants, I don't want to say retribution, but wants to be made whole for the wrong that was done to them, I do think that child as an adult should have the right to get what's actually owed to them. The attempted murder of them before they were born should be made whole if that possibility allows. Does that kind of answer the question? I don't want to kind of drive you into a hole.
No, I think some of these are pretty difficult questions that you would have to, if you wanted in a society to come and figure them out. Yeah, I think it would be a long discussion. I would I like the idea of having these on obviously the local level, kind of, again, with Ron Paul, he was talking about having acts of aggression are taken up on the local level. Why not take something like this? So we could have those decisions at the local level. And if you wanted some society in New York City, say, that wanted to legalize everything, then they can pay their own penalties. Yeah, and so I think society will reap significant penalties, financial and social, for having that type of society that just says, anything goes. We could have drugs, and we could kill anybody, all those things. I think there'd be a lot of problems that would exist in a society like that. And people that didn't want to exist in a society like that should be able to move away and decide for themselves within a community, whether it be a city, county, or probably state, to legalize or not legalize such activities. And then they could figure out laws according to, like we were just talking about.
You know what? That argument is actually pretty well thought out, that I can't argue against it, right? Because the current legal framework establishes that Roe versus Wade framework, where there's nobody can, even at a local level, right, can prohibit abortion. We can't even give people the inconvenience of driving to a state where it's legal, right? It has to be legal everywhere. At the same time, it goes one step further. It forces us taxpayers, indirectly or directly, to fund these acts of immorality, which kind of passes the buck on being able to kind of face the fact that what you're doing is immoral. And if you were forced to pay for that act after witnessing it, you might be less likely to do so. So the more local that it gets, the more likely you are to see the direct results of the actions themselves. So you'll notice that, hey, this might not be the most medically effective procedure. This might not be the most medically necessary procedure. So I think your taxpayer-funded dollars might be better spent somewhere else. But the same argument could be put on to a host of issues. So the entire Obamacare thing, right, kind of begs these questions. Now we have to argue on which things are taxpayer funded. Obviously, as a libertarian, you should know that this entire healthcare system is a debacle. It should be, nothing should be forced by any taxpayer. But to bring it back,
yeah. Right. But it is kind of, if they dump Obamacare and now California wants to have California care, right? They want to have Obamacare in California, then, it's not fair because California has 52 million people, and I'm sure 26.1 million people don't want it, but of course they're going to force it on them anyways. So, but it is, I would rather have it at a state level, especially broke California, just to show what a crap load that system is. But at least it would be at a local level. So if California wants to have it, yeah, that's one thing. So I was saying with my friend of mine and advisor, Dr. Phil Fernandez, he's talked about this for a while, that you should really have these decisions at the local level. You can have the idea of, I don't know if he's really talked about the prostitution or, whatever it is, like Reno, it's legal in a little area outside Vegas, I think not in Vegas. Or you could have like a community doesn't want a pornography shop in their community. They can decide, we don't want that in our community, and so you're not welcome here. And we're going to, basically vote against you. And you can go outside the community, and if people in the community absolutely have to have your product, then they can go outside and they can go do whatever they want,
Right, as long as you're not necessitating their personal consumption. And
yeah, no, we're not going to facilitate certain activities within our community. And you can cross the border and do it.
Give me a background. So you are in California right now?
No, I'm in Washington State.
Okay, you're in Washington.
Worse. I'm in the Seattle area.
Okay, you're a little bit better then. How's so far?
I don't know. I'm in a better state, but I'm in a worse community.
Wait, I know the community. So the current legal status, for example, of marijuana, right? Is it legal in just Seattle, or is it legal in the state?
Nope, it's legal in the state. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is that? This is just a comparison, because this is how people would say, well, women are autonomous, right? There's no victim to an abortion. Well, this is a kind of an analogy. I'll ask you, the effects of legalizing marijuana. What are the immediate effects? And if there are any negative effects, who are the perpetrators of the negative effects?
Well, so I actually, I think decriminalization of marijuana is fine. I've never actually done marijuana. I did buy some muscle cream, relaxing cream. I don't know. The other people said it works well. I haven't really noticed. But I know that when you take that and you combine the fact that Seattle is extremely leftist, right? They are like San Francisco type left, right? And so they have lots of giveaways plus marijuana. And so in the city of Seattle, it's terrible. I mean, there are extreme externalities because there's tents everywhere, there's homeless everywhere, it's just awful. And so I think it's not necessarily, legalization of marijuana, but it is one area where it's one part of the country where it's legalized, and then within that state, within the state of Washington, you have an area that legalized, basically they legalized all drugs. You can shoot up heroin on the corner. People literally will shoot heroin on the sidewalk, pass out on the middle of the sidewalk in the middle of downtown Seattle. And all of that is, fine and dandy according to the politicians. So just look up trash in Seattle. If anybody's watching, look up trash in Seattle. It's insane. No, I think that marijuana is a huge part of that it's attracting lots of homeless that are kind of vagrants and people that are not really interested.
You could just do what San Francisco did. They just shipped them to Hawaii. So now Hawaii does that. Like they literally put them on boats and then shipped them to Hawaii. New York is somebody else's problem.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they've done to Seattle. Actually, Seattle is the new Hawaii, because people in Montana, it's not as beautiful, and during the summer it's nice. But they put them on buses in Montana, and they actually tell people, hey, we don't have anything for you. Seattle's got better climates, better winters. They're spending. You know how much Seattle is going to spend next? They pushed a property tax initiative. I don't live in Seattle. I live outside Seattle. Mm-hmm. I would never buy in Seattle. A property tax, $100 million next year. They're going to spend on combating homeless. They have a homeless czar. All that. Yeah, so I figure that's about $2,000 per homeowner in the city of Seattle is going to pay to facilitate homelessness and
Right.
drug use.
So now you have the problem of basically taxpayer money coming to incentivize bad behavior rather than what the correct move in my estimate would have been to take no position on these issues. They shouldn't make any rules regarding the homeless. The homeless should be completely shunned, right? They should be, if they're on the streets or in their public parks, they should be removed until they figure out that they have to do something. If people that are actually mentally handicapped, right, they should actually be put in those positions, and that's all voluntary behavior. The problem with this incentive structure system that you kind of just outlined is, I'm from the heroin capital of the world, in New Hampshire. Right now, it's apparently the heroin epidemic has apparently killed 3 times more people per capita than the crack epidemic of the 80s. Right, so they have an incentive structure that in this heroin epidemic because they push these, I guess you could say, these legal opioids, and then after they keep them in, then they cut them off, and then they push them on the street, and then heroin's readily available, and people are just shooting up. And instead of actually saying, all right, guys, we need to do something about this, they're going, all right, so doctors only prescribe 2 months at a time. And it's like, well, great job. Now you've just actually set up the next host of addicts that are going to actually seek out heroin. It's terrible. Government never just generally acts in the best interest of the people. Federally, there's a contradiction though, right? We have a federal, to bring it back here, we have a federal law on abortion, right? Technically, it has to be legal, right? It's a civil right. It's a privacy, something to do with privacy. I don't know where, I don't understand how that's related to privacy, but it is, okay? That's how they make everything.
Like somehow with you and your doctor, I think is what they say.
Right. Doctor-patient privilege. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that, that being personal. But if somebody finds out, generally, if the other partner found out that his child was murdered and he actually was willing to raise it, that father, right, has a right to that woman to basically force her to actually say, seek another host if you're not willing to actually sustain it. And if she doesn't do that, right, I think that it's negligence. I think that she should be shunned in society. I know it's a privacy thing. I know I don't think she should be criminally prosecuted, but I do think that the husband has the right to do what she did to the owner of the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers never went to jail, right? But you can pretty much see that his reputation went down the drain because he publicly did something that was quote unquote so atrocious by talking about black people and white people or with some BS concept that pisses people off. But the public actually shunned him though, and he can't go, he doesn't have respect anymore. And if you basically can go out and prove that this woman went out and decided to just destroy a child that you were willing to raise, I think that the same consequence should happen to her. I don't think that she should be legally punished. I think that society should punish her through social norms. Everyone hates the guy, if you're sitting in a line, that barges into the front and tries to cut. No one goes to jail, right? But society has rules and regulations that spontaneously form, right? I think they call it, this is a Hayek concept I think you're probably aware of, right? So about the spontaneous order. Spontaneous order should basically you don't get mad at the concept of someone cutting lines. You get mad when that cutter goes in front of you, right? So until people can actually see the consequences of the abortion, they're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah, and you brought up the fatherhood issue. I think Shapiro and some other people have talked about how the lack of fatherhood basically comes from the fact that the fathers, until that child is born, really have no responsibility. They have no requirements. They have no rights. Now they're told that you will sit down and you will shell out money if the woman tells you to, and then they expect when the child's born, he's a deadbeat dad if he doesn't take that responsibility. In an instant.
What do you think of this, right? Because there is a double standard with the woman's autonomous right to terminate the baby, and there's even actually there's legal clauses that actually allow her after the babies are born to legally abandon it without any financial responsibility. So at any point in time, she can just release all of her responsibility. At the time that what do you think of the equal law? As long as abortion is legal, the father has a right to say, well, I actually disassociate myself from any financial upbringing of this baby, and I also disassociate and myself from any like parental rights from being able to see the child, right? That would at least make it legal and in terms of the financial sense under the law. Right now we have a disparity under the law where the father has no rights and the mother has autonomy over the baby, or the child's life in perpetuity. What do you think?
Yeah, so you said under the present conditions that the father would have a chance to financially abort himself from the baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be basically a fairness doctrine that he has no rights. Yeah. Now you could still say he's going to be shunned. He's still a deadbeat dad. You know, he's gone in, he's created this life, and now he's just going to abandon it when he finds out, oops, you know, I did something that I didn't want to do. I participated in life activities and got negative consequences in return. And so, yeah, I think was it Rothbard that, because you mentioned you disagreed with Rothbard. Was he the one that said, I think he related it to a woman waking up and there's suddenly a lifeless body that's attached to him and completely reliant on him for, yeah. And again, Tom Woods took this up in one of his podcasts, I think, that, and it's a nonsense argument. I think we agree on this.
Yep.
But it's a nonsense argument because it's not like you just go to sleep one day as a woman and you wake up and, oh my God, what is this thing that's attached to me? I haven't done anything at all, right? I didn't participate in any activity that would have caused this man to attach himself to me, and he's just a parasite. Well, no, he might be, you know, sucking off your calories and stuff, but he obviously, as we just said, it was no accident. Or I guess it was an accident, but it was it was not something that was completely outside of your realm.
Control, yeah.
Control, yeah. So yeah, I think Rothbard is just really a nonsense argument that he.
Yeah, this is actually I kind of needed to take this point because I had the Rothbard icon, so I needed to actually clarify that I think this might be the worst case that R.L. Rothbard actually presented in any of his writings, simply because he looked at it in such a black and white manner without seeing any nuance with the position. He equivocated the willing act of a woman actually engaging in sex, not doing anything about it, thinking that, oh, maybe something went wrong during sex, like, you know, the man didn't pull out. I'm quite aware that he didn't pull out, just a condom broke, and you know what? I'm gonna take my chances. Like, if we're gonna go that far, it's hard. You're gonna be hard pressed to be like, oh yeah, that's the same thing as waking up with an invasive parasite, a leech, or a tapeworm within your system that has to be removed because it's actually leaching off of your valuable nutrients, and as long as it stays in you, you're gonna be less healthy. It's a complete farce. The nuance argument I did think was the other one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Especially, yeah. I mean, you're completely right. Especially in today's society, the advancement of technology, where today you have that morning after pill, you can, with a very high likelihood, prevent anything that might occur. So, sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, not at all. And just to actually, coming up to the closing arguments, I know we didn't actually have like a full-out debate, but I did actually want to maintain that I took this position with the clarification to try to expound on this issue because there's generally two sides. In fact, if you look at Gary Johnson, this is what I remember he said, well, you can tell I'm more libertarian because if you go to the ACLU's website, I have more flags than Ron Paul because I have an extra flag because I'm for more freedom than him because I'm for abortion rights. And I was like, well, I'm not sure if you understand what libertarian is. Actually, I'm pretty convinced you don't, Gary. But the flags of the ACLU has been kind of irrelevant to civil liberties because abortion doesn't exactly kind of coincide with freedom of speech, which, you know, should be your kind of cornerstone here.
Yes. I mean, yeah. Gary Johnson, what he got me is, well, one, he was saying he's 73% with Bernie Sanders, and I just laughed at that, and I was like, could you not possibly have more reasons, 73 reasons to vote against him? But also, mainly that in his debate, I don't know if you saw the debate on Stossel, with I liked Peterson. I don't really like Peterson as a person or anything, but I really liked him in those debates. I thought he basically said everything that I think I could agree with pretty much. And I like how he really grilled Johnson on his question about the cake. I forget what his exact question was, but he asked him, the Nazi, wants to have a Jew bake a cake for him, I think it was. And he said, yeah, that would be basically my position, is to force the Jew to bake the cake for the Nazi. And I thought, well, that's, that's just, it's a completely ridiculous idea for anybody who's even pretending to be libertarian to say that you don't have a right of disassociation.
Do you remember his reason for that?
I think he, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, though.
He's
just bake the cake, I think, was his.
Yeah, essentially, it was like, it wasn't. I think his argument was like, well, you have to understand, I'm founding this in religious freedom, forcing to bake the cake for the gay couple, and it was like, what the, complete contradictory statement.
Oh, that's what it was. That was what really got me, was that he said it's a black box. It's a religious black box, right? We say, oh, one religion can't. Because you have a religion, and you want to say no to somebody, that's a horrible black box. We can't open that. No, I guess we cannot open the box to, rights of disassociation. We can't have any of that, because somebody might open up a no blacks allowed lunch counter or something like that. And I mean, it's just a ridiculous argument that anybody's actually going to do that, especially in today's society where you would say the market takes care of that. Now, I think the market has some issues with SJWs and the way they really go after anybody that they heard this guy once said the N-word when he was 3 years old, and now we must punish him at 56 and destroy his career and take away his life savings because we heard somebody said he called them, and again at like 3 years old or something, Oh, sorry, you're cutting out.
Or Lady on the Food Channel.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, she said, yeah, like her career was completely fine, right? And like before people became aware of the viewpoint, nothing changed. Like she didn't do anything that was political or influencing people, but yet her career has to be destroyed, even though she was the top-rated host on that network that baked cakes, right? I mean, there's no political influence. So you're right. The market generally, right, would have actually, we have a problem now with the difference between what we consider the market. I think that I told you the abortion problem, I would actually call it, can only be solved in a manner where the people actually have personal experience seeing the results of an abortion, seeing the results of a procedure, seeing the negligence of the baby afterwards, right? They actually have awareness of the procedure, an awareness of the results of the procedure, and then the awareness of the alternatives to having that procedure personally, to actually have the market actually shun those people, right? Until then, we just basically have misinformation that dictates opinions. One last thing on that last point, right? On the market, just going back to the market, the SJW problem is a freedom of speech problem. The market generally, on YouTube, you might see that anti-SJW channels are dominating YouTube, right? What happens? You have a massive boycott of YouTube saying that they're having the white supremacist content being sponsored, right? What is YouTube's response yesterday? Guess what? Anything that actually criticizes SJWs, this is not the word for word, but they said any politically inflammatory thoughts will make sure to not be on the recommended sidebar, will be non-monetized, and will be hidden from views from your related likes, right? So what they're going to do is they're essentially trying to silence them because they're doing so well. It's one of these things that it's like the market's trying to take care of it, but you kind of have outside forces kind of pushing things back into those other realms. Same with abortion, I'd argue.
It almost makes you kind of think about the monopoly of Facebook and YouTube, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, they really do. That's the other. I'm not sure if you saw this. YouTube made the announcement that they're going to now partner with Facebook and Twitter to combat, combat political extremism and fake news.
Yeah,
and it's just
they combated fake news, quite a while ago. I think they partnered, and I know I like the Prager University videos, but they are being silenced. Yeah, Prager University says YouTube is putting a lot of Mark Dice. I follow Mark Dice. He's being demonetized for anything that he says, and YouTube doesn't pay these people very much anyways. You get 1 million views, and I think you get like $50 or something. So
it's definitely changed. They're definitely they started with the de-incentivization, right? like saying, all right, we're not going to monetize these types of comments. But now they're doing this thing where they have like the restricted mode and doing all these things where they're only actually highlighting channels that they want you to know. Philip DeFranco, like I guess you could, I want to say he's Mr. Vanilla, Mr. like I'm not controversial, I just do things like this. He has like 8 million subscribers or something. 90% of his videos are demonetized, and it's Philip DeFranco. I think he has 8 million subscribers. He's just one of these giant YouTube news guys, right? That just talks about this general social issues, right? And he gives his opinion on it. But he's very vanilla. He's very non-controversial. He's very non-opinionated when he does it. And he's like the least offensive person that you can listen to. And he's considered to be too politically inflammatory, right? And yet they have Fox News, MSNBC, BBC actually being monetized and promoted. So it's just kind of they're feeding into this frenzy, right? If you want to talk about these issues, right, we're going to talk about echo chambers, right? Facebook is designed to be an echo chamber. YouTube is now being pushed into an echo chamber. Twitter is nothing but a mindless echo chamber, right? You really actually can't even reach and talk to anybody one-on-one anymore without actually having an avalanche of I would guess you could say political opponents trying kind of personally attacking you and giving you ad homs to kind of like, and if you keep going, they might attack your career. It kind of gives a chilling effect to actually having real conversation.
Yeah, I don't even use Twitter. I'm on Facebook way too much. I'm trying to get away from my horrible, pointless, useless arguments on Facebook, especially being that I live in the Seattle area where everybody's against me for the most part. I get into arguments with runner friends, but some are cool about it. We get along, but others don't like me, I think. So,
well, hey, I think this debate's gone really well. I think that this went pretty smoothly. I know people that were watching this later. They're like, "Hey, where the heck is the controversy? Where's somebody taking the staunch stance pro-abortion?" I'm doing my best to look at it intellectually, honestly. I'm trying to be objective here. It's kind of hard to look at a doctor pulling out a baby, right? First, seeing the baby moving, and then breaking its neck or putting it in the shredder, and lack of a better word, right? And then going, "Oh yeah, that's a neutral act. That's just a medical procedure." It's just you witness it first and then make your own argument.
Yeah, I mean, there's some videos that have gone around on Facebook and being posted by people where they show in a cartoon version of what happens. And what's the famous doctor? They made a movie out of him, and he would. I mean, a lot of times you find these babies, they're just left on a counter to die, or they're thrown in the trash, breathing,
yep,
existing, yeah, failed. Partial birth abortion, so they just pull them out, throw them in the garbage, and yeah, it's pretty sad that people are feeling pretty happy to do that kind of thing. I think the idea from the left is that we want as few abortions as possible, but the reality is that many people are pointing out is no, they don't want as few as possible. They're really facilitating the structure to maximize the number of abortions, because anytime somebody tries to do something that minimizes the amount of abortions that might occur, they freak out, right? So the idea, again, of taking $500 million of taxpayer money away from a company that really does, I mean, they're most famous for abortions. Yeah, it's a smaller portion of what they do, but it is their most monetized portion. They are a for-profit corporation, let's be real here. And they get $500 million of taxpayer money, and that is really what people know them for. Most of the other stuff, the women's health, they farm that out to other people. So
just that last point, just take it right from there. Planned Parenthood has kind of a connotation behind it, right? To actually plan out your parenthood. It's one thing that I do find ironic, and to people that actually are pregnant and thinking about abortion, the Planned Parenthood does not actually discuss the possibility of giving up your child for adoption. If you truly actually cannot find, if you're actually trying to be responsible, and you think that you cannot possibly financially sustain this baby, there is a responsible alternative, and that's actually to look for adoption agencies. There are really good ones, and there are willing parents, and that is an option that's available immediately. So I gave the hypothetical where, doctors should put it into a willing host. That's kind of a future outlook. But today, you can always look for adoption, and until Planned Parenthood kind of lives up to their name, you should avoid them at all costs.
Yeah, they talk you into, they say, hey, you're calling about an abortion? It's like, hello, when can we schedule your abortion?
Yep.
When can we schedule your abortion? I mean, that's basically what they say. Before we go, I was gonna. Oh man, just totally slipped my mind on that. But damn it, what was I gonna say? Well, I guess we could just end. We got about 20 seconds here. So, basically, my argument again was the NAP. Number 2, a child is a life. I mean, we agreed on this pretty much. But for anybody who's watching the end here, it's not part of the mother. It's got different organs. It's got different blood types. And so anytime you are having an abortion, you are violating the NAP, and therefore it should not be a libertarian.